Okay, so today I am joined by the one and only Freddie, who everyone is well aware of in this school, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Freddie, out of your extremely busy schedule to
No
join
problem.
me today. So I
It's
know last
okay.
year during College Awareness Week, we're having a chat when I was putting up the teachers' qualifications, and you were telling me about your background in hotel and the catering industry, and I'm so fascinated about it. So that's why I thought you'd be a brilliant candidate for College Awareness this week. So can you tell me a
Okay.
small bit about your background in the hotel and catering industry?
Well, it started when I was in St. Fintina's up the road here. I always was interested, but I was never really involved. I used to sweep the floors for Mother Hubbard's when it was only a caravan. It's long, long time ago. And I sort of enjoyed it because Mr. Barry, the man that owned it, Mother Hubbard's caravan at the time, he used to serve the truckers and he used to have lots of fun and laugh and joke and all that. And I sort of said to myself, I wouldn't mind that. So when I was in leaving cert, I got a chance to work with CERT. CERT is like a training body. It's now an NCCB or something like that.
Yep.
And so I applied, and luckily I got it. I had to do an aptitude test and everything, and then I had to do an interview and stuff like that. And they awarded me a thing. Now they paid me because I couldn't afford to go to college at the time. So then when I started then, I started in head office, in CERT head office, and then after as a chef. So I trained as a chef, went used to go out with in blocks and stuff like that. And one summer then they sent me to France and I worked with a chef called Paul Boucault. He was fairly famous at the time and he was tough to work with, but he gave me a good start. And then I come back then and I decided maybe if I just went to Cottlebrew Street and did it properly. So that's how I started. And I did a hotel management. Started with a diploma first, and then I carried on to a degree.
Okay, so just go back to the chef piece when you went over to get your experience in France. Can you tell me what kind of a day to day, um, what day to day looked like doing that without maybe having your degree or your
Yeah,
diploma?
well, everybody started off as a commie chef. A commie chef is the base part. Didn't matter who you were. Now, we spoke English, we didn't speak French unless it was menu related and stuff like that. So I didn't really learn French, just enough to get me by. But everybody was started as a commie chef. That meant sweeping the floors, washing dishes, kitchen porter type jobs, and then you'd be allowed to do vegetables. Now he was Michelin star, so it was very intense. He once he was working, once he was on the floor, he did very little cooking himself, but he stood on the pass. And if you were out of line once, that's when you heard his French. And it wasn't nice. Most of the time I didn't understand what he was saying, but he used to give me abuse. But
Yeah,
he
and
gave
I
everybody abuse. That's just the way it was at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's
But
a really important point you just made there because I know in any sector, whether it's an accountancy, place or, solicitors, etc., that you are starting off, photocopying or maybe, as you said,
yeah,
sweeping the floors. I think sometimes students have this perception that, you're going to be going in and working,
yes,
the good life where, it is an
yeah.
point to make there that you do have to go in at that level and then work your way up. So just in relation to that experience you have, did you learn any skills when you were working in France?
I was very shy. I know it probably doesn't seem it now, but I was very shy. I couldn't talk to people. Uh, I was I was sort of very backward country type person. And even my old teachers would tell you I didn't really get in trouble or anything like that because I was sort of afraid. I was always afraid that if I got in trouble in school, I'd get in trouble at home. So it was always sort of I got shy. Wasn't allowed, I didn't want to talk to people. But when I started working in France, mostly with CERT, uh, they showed me there's ways of doing it, getting out of your box without being rude or anything like that, because you can have a change of mentality when you finish school and stuff like that. And it wasn't really working for me. So as soon as I started with CERT, they brought me in. They said, "Listen, this is how you're going to do," and all that sort of stuff. And it did definitely As soon as I went out in blocks then, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month at a time, I started to come out of my box a little bit more, and it was very good for me that way. It made me maybe talk to people, and I wasn't afraid of how their perception of me. So that's basically how it helped me. Like timekeeping was very important and stuff like that. So keeping clean shaven, keep your hair right, uniforms clean, all that sort of stuff, all as part of that type of training. So that's how things were at the time. Like now you took a lot of punishment, a lot of work, a lot of time, but it was worth it at times.
So then when you came home from France, you said that you applied for the diploma. Is that right, Freddie? Or
So
was it?
I started with a diploma, yeah. So when I was still a chef, but wasn't really what I was sort of looking for, because at the time in Ireland, money for chefs was pretty poor, especially commie chef. Like I remember when I was in France, I think it was 50 francs a week. Now, 50 francs a week at the time, I think it was £30 or something like that, which is about €40. Like, and that was my week. Now I got fed, obviously, and I had to pay for my uniforms. My father had to pay for them actually. So, but when I came home from Ireland then, I went to do my degree, I wanted to do the diploma, but it wasn't chefing. So I decided to change to do hotel management. And that took 4 years. But again, there was blocks, you know, like so you did 6 months in, 6 months out, sort of like an apprenticeship, but you had to be on site, which meant going to Dublin every morning and on the bus air and bus, and it was good, and you had to wear uniform. Like it's very unusual in a college to wear a uniform, but I had to, it was because it was part of the type of college it was at the time. That's that's how it started. So it took 4 years, and then there was blocks then that you had to do exams, and I had to do TCs and stuff like that. Like so it was very good, and it does like when you're finished secondary school, your head you don't really want to learn anymore, but you do. You keep learning. Like every day is a school day.
So
You know,
what made you change your mind from going from a chef then into the hotel management?
basically the money. There was no money. There was no money in the chef part of it. Well, I wasn't getting it anyway. And when I came home, I did a few bits and pieces around. I worked in a place called the United Arts Club. It was a private members club. I did a little bit of cooking, but they asked me to go behind the counter, and I said, okay, not really built for that. And and then that's where I found me sort of like a calling type thing,
Yeah.
and I decided to change to to the hotel management. Then
And
it's great.
just when you went on to that course, and I know there's some of our students who are interested in the hotel management side of
Yeah.
things, was there anything that stood out for you on the course? That you liked or maybe that you didn't like?
The practical stuff, I really enjoyed the practical stuff. The actual cooking, the actual serving, the actual bar work. I probably preferred the bar work, but I did a bit of waiting, and all this was in college. It gave me a college attitude, and like go out, stay over, and go out with my friends and stuff like that. But the course itself was intensive. you know, Everything was at the final, like they were learning you for the final part of actually going out to work. And it was great. It shows you how to be on time, look after yourself, talk to people. Talking to people was the biggest part for me because I was so shy and I was so afraid to talk to people. Like, but they learn you how to do it. They teach you how to do it, and it was really really good. And I spent a lot of time in the school doing extra stuff, and and it was really really good. It was very interesting. In hindsight, probably went. I probably should have stuck with the chef work because I do like to cook, but that's neither here nor there now anymore. And I really enjoyed the management part of it.
And I think there is more money in chefing nowadays, isn't there?
Oh yeah,
To what it was years
I
ago.
have chef friends and they are on good money. Like they be
Yeah.
on 50,000 a year, 55,000 a year, depending on the level they're at. Like one of my friends, he's on 80,000 a year, you know,
But
so
it's a stressful environment, I
but
think.
it's stressful and he's under pressure, you know,
Yeah.
like he's under pressure all the time. He reckons he has another 2, maybe 3 years in it, and that's he'll be finished, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
from doing your degree then, Freddie, in your hotel management, can you tell me what areas did you work in then?
Well, it was my degree then was hotel management. I carried on. Now, because it was only relatively new, the degree in hotel management at the time, it was an extra 2 years. But I didn't do the extra 2 years. What I did was I did the block release. So again, because my training was intensive, most of my time was spent doing exams, doing theses. It was less about the job and more about the theory of the job. So the block release then was to go and work in hotels. I did a little bit in the Gresham, a little bit in what the Conrad. It's the Conrad now. I can't remember what the name was at the time. I did a little bit of Wynn's Hotel. All the city centre hotels used to take young people in and used to train them up and get them ready for the management part of it. And then when I did my degree, then like it was I found it easy, you know, and I got it. I don't know how I got it, but I got it because getting it from here to the writing on the page, that's where the tough part is.
So you mentioned a few hotels there that you worked in, and that's quite interesting. Did you ever work abroad with your degree?
Yeah, I worked in a cruise ship. I worked
So
for
can
the
you tell
Royal
us a small
Caribbean
bit about
Cruise
that?
Line.
What a day to day looked
Yeah,
like on a cruise ship?
now to go back after I do my degree, I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do. So I went to work full time then in that private club that I was telling you about. And they sort of welcomed me and I got a chance to run that, do what I really wanted to. There used to be art shows and stuff like that and live classes and Anna Hamilton would love it. But uh, that's the type of place it was and used to do food and drink and stuff like that. But it wasn't really what I wanted, you know. So a friend of mine then that I did my degree with, he said to me, do you know, he said, there's a woman that works down the road there. She has an office down the road. She works with the cruise companies. He said, would you be interested in that? I said, so one thing and another. I called into her one day and I said to her, listen, I said, I just want to get away from home because Ireland, you know, in the 80s, you know, the late 80s. So she said, I have a job for you. And 5 days later, I was in Miami and waiting for the ship that I started off in, which was the Majesty of the Seas, the biggest ship in the world at the time, with the most passengers on it. She said, "This is the one for you." She said. So, uh, like everything else, thick Irish man, flying over to Miami. Never been abroad really, apart from that part in France, but never really out of abroad. So I landed in Miami and I walked down onto the port and I seen this ship because I used to do the Irish ferries and the Irish ferries were huge, you know, like uh with the Irish ferries and I said if I get something like that, I'll be delighted with it. And I seen this ship, the Dolphin, it was twice the size of the Irish ferries, and so wow, this is massive. I can't believe this. And then one or two other ships come on, and each one of them was bigger than the other. Next thing, the one that I was on came in on the Sunday morning. It was coming in forever. It was like a moving city, you know, like massive. And I said, this is for me. So I went on to it anyway, and it was 4 years of pure work. And I really enjoyed it most of the time, but it was so much work. It was all work. People say, what did you see? Well, I seen work. I didn't see all these countries that I was at. I went around the world a few times and went to Caribbean mostly, but there was other places, Mediterranean, the Ocean, places like that. You see loads you see them out through a porthole. But I got cute. I used to pay guys to work, do my shift, and I used to go out to these places because the money didn't matter at the time. The money was good. Money was good. Work was hard. Money was good.
So what did you
Really.
do on the cruise ships? Was it cooking
Well,
or?
there was only one place there was really money, and that was in the dining room. But you worked for yourself. You didn't get paid by the company. Company didn't give you a wage. What you did, you signed a contract. It was like being working for yourself, being self-employed. So you start, busboy is the person that does the ship work. They're the first in and they're the last out. And you spend months at that. I actually spent my first contract was just being a busboy. That was tough. Then when to get you back, you have to sign a contract. So when I went home for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then I flew back. And when I flew back, they made me a waiter. And not only that, they made me a captain's waiter. So the captain's waiter looks after the captain, like his steward. And you have your own passengers plus his passengers. And every night for dinner, we did two sittings for breakfast, two sittings for lunch, and two sittings for dinner. And it was stress all the time, but it was great. It was really good crack. There was 60 other nationalities. There was 600 people in the restaurant at any one time. It was just pure chaos, and it was brilliant. So, and then I used to look after the captain as well as my own people. It was great. But as soon as I took the order, once I walked into the kitchen, I got to the head of the queue, which made life an awful lot easier because you can't be waiting around either, like so. And that was great. And I spent 3 years at that, 3 years as the captain's waiter, and you have stripes and stuff like that. So, and it gave me a feeling of being a little bit okay, good at what I do and stuff like that. And but after a while, after the fourth year, I think I started to get tired because you're working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, up to 11 months. And it was supposed to be 6 months, but it was 11 months my last one, and I just had to go. I had no choice. I had to go. But it was great. It was a good experience, really good experience.
And on those cruise ships, because I know sometimes you will get students interested in cruise work,
Mm.
they pay for your accommodation on board. Is that correct? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Once you step on to the ship, uh, you they give you a room and board. You get if you want some drinks or anything like that. They've always their own entertainment. Crew has their own entertainment, depending on what department you are. But they have cleaning staff, uh, room cleaners, stewards, waiting staff, bar staff, gym staff. They have everything. Casino people, and depending on where you are on the ship, that's where you lived.
okay,
So we lived beside the restaurant. Now, living beside the restaurant, you would have to walk from here to Longwood Church to get to the restaurant. It was just, you're talking huge, huge areas. But we had our own entertainment and we had our own crew bars. We played a bit of music. And when you stop in a port, you can pay somebody. There's guys going around all the time looking for more money. They're from usually Philippines or places like that. They're there for 10 years and then they go home rich people. So we weren't going to be rich. So we used to pay. So we used to go as a crowd, 20 of us just heading off. Irish, English, Scottish, French, Spanish. Irish and Spanish always got on. And that's how we made our entertainment. It was great. It was really, really good.
okay. So it's interesting because when people talk about working on cruise ships, they probably do think of maybe the food side of it, or sometimes it's the beauty side. But I know
Mm.
I've talked to and some of my past students have played music on cruise ships, and they go on to it for a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
touring around. So I think it's a great opportunity when you're young to see the world.
Yes.
I do think it is a great, but it's from hearing you there, it is hard work.
It is,
So
but I have to say, it's experience you never get anywhere else because what you do is you want to know where famous people go, they go on cruises. Like I've met very, very famous people on it. Like I've my Michael Jackson, Gloria Estefan, people like that. That um these are the type of people that you meet. That's what they do. You say, where these people go on holidays? They go on cruises. So you nearly always find somebody that, but it's the ordinary people that are the best fun. And that's where I preferred. But
Yeah.
these people, these famous people, generally sit in the captain's table anyway. Like, but they just want to be left alone as well. So that when you're on a ship like that, you're on your own, but you meet a lot of different type of people. It's great.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought about the people who are famous, because I suppose it is, they're on a cruise ship, they're not, it is private in one way. So,
Yeah, well,
that's
it
great.
has its
Yeah,
own
very
police
cool.
force. It has its own police force and stuff like that. So, and bouncers, security is not allowed on the ship apart from what they supply themselves.
Yeah.
But they walk around. They walk around. They play. They go into the beauty parlor to do the gym. They're always same as everybody else. And after a while, ordinary people as well. At the end of the day. You
Yeah.
know.
So, sorry, I think it's freezing at the moment, but it's back on track here now. The video is freezing a small bit, but
Okay.
so just after the cruise ships, then can you tell me, where did you go then?
So what did it? The last time I came home, then while I was at home, my dad died, and it stopped me from going back on the ship because I didn't want to leave my. I have two sisters, and my mother was alive at the time. I didn't want to leave them because there was a lot. There was a lot of things. He died suddenly, and I didn't want to go back, so I didn't bother going back. So I started working in Edenderry, in a restaurant in Edenderry with a friend of mine, and I did that for a while. And then I got a phone call one evening from Diane Salmon and Furies. And my intention was to go back to the ship, but she said, "Come down," she said, "and have a chat with me. Come down and have a chat." So I went down one night, and there was a few friends of mine at the counter, and we had a bit of a laugh and stuff like that. So we had a very informal sort of job interview. And she said, we starting to do food now and it's starting to take off. Would you be interested? I said, yeah. I said, but I'm going. She said, give us a go, she said, for a couple of months and see how you go. Well, that was 24 years. I spent 24 years of Furies after that. Uh, and every now and again, I used to say to her, I think my hour, couple of months is up, like, sure, she said she said, stay for another few months, like, so, but I really liked Furies, and it was a great place to work. The people I worked with, the two girls that own it, they were really, really easy to work for. They left the job to me. I just worked my job, and it's changed slightly then because at the time it was so busy, and then it got to a stage that people were waiting around. So she said, Freddie, she said, I want to change what you do. She said, is it okay that if you just concentrate behind the counter and do that sort of stuff? And that was like music to my ears because that's where I liked. So I spent, suppose, just doing the bar work then was great, looking after stock, looking after money, stuff like that. It was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. Like, and it was the people that used to come in, they were great. Customers were great, but you had to know where you were at all times.
Yeah, and I think about bar work because I've worked in bar work for a couple of years myself, but people don't realize there's so much more to it than serving the people. As you said there,
Mm,
the stock take, the cleaning behind the bar, I used to dread that.
yeah,
Or even the money, counting the money at the end of the night and making sure
yeah,
that you weren't, 'cause there wasn't the facilities there is now where they can, there's all computerized now, where
yes,
back then you'd be so disappointed if your till was down by €20 because you'd have to be forking the money out yourself,
oh yeah, yeah,
or even bringing the tills up to the safe. Sometimes I used to be a bit probably afraid that I had all this money,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it was
I understand that.
a massive responsibility, and then locking up, etc. So there is a lot
Yeah.
of skills required for working behind a
Yeah.
bar. It's not just serving the customers. But
One of
yeah,
the big one of the That's an interesting point there about bringing the money. The money is the biggest thing in the bar. Now I've been held up a few times, like, but you have to put that sort of stuff behind you. You can't be thinking about that, because if you always think that you're going to be held up and somebody's going to try and kill you, that doesn't happen. Usually what happens is they hold you up, to take the money, and they're gone. Or to take the cigarettes or whatever, like. But you have to try and forget about that. You can't be working under that mentality. You have to move on and leave that sort of, because it's very, very rare
Yeah.
that stuff like that happens.
And what skills and qualities did you bring from the cruise ships then to Furies?
Organization. Because when I went into Furies, when I started in Furies, and no disrespect to anybody that worked in Furies at the time, right? I went down to the storeroom. The first day I went down into the store. The storeroom is under the floor, it's under the ground in Furies. And I thought this was great. I said, yes, great, like. So I went down into the store. Oh my God. It was just pure chaos. It was There was stock in it. There was 4 years out of date. There was broken bottles. There was broken cans. There was kegs. There was kegs 2 months out of date. There was kegs in date mixed with the kegs out there. Stock control didn't exist. There was no organization. So, and I think maybe that's why I was employed in it first, because the cruise ship gives you that, gives you organization, because if you can't organize anything, they don't want you on the ship. So when I came home then and started working in Furies, my first priority was to clean up the storeroom, clean up the floors, get a table, get a table order and stuff like that. Make sure where's the dockets going off the food. It's good written in the book. Well, the book ain't going to solve anything here. We may get, when I come in, I should be putting a docket up there. Stuff like that, like it didn't, because they were starting off. There was a great chef in it. He's actually still in it, Richard. Uh, Me and him sort of hit it off straight away, and we had a good rapport with each other, because I knew what he was at because of my background and stuff like that. So that's organization, timekeeping, stuff like that. And I wasn't afraid to talk to people then at that stage, and I could give them my opinion. And in fairness, they listened to what I was saying, and they took it on board, and away we went. And it was very successful for a good while.
Yeah. So then, to bring you kind of up to the last couple of years, I'll never forget the first day I saw you in the school, and we were all introduced to you, and I was like, I know his face. I don't know where I know his face from. I'd say there's a lot of parents who might have seen you. I know you know a lot of people, Freddie, but it is lovely that you came from Furies into a totally different job here in Clough-Clavan, and I suppose one of the things before we get into it is that sometimes people forget that their skills are so transferable.
Yeah.
People, and I see that in guidance where a student might come to me and they might be interested in a certain area, and the mentality is this is me for life. And it's very hard to get students away from that thinking. And I know it's so normal when you're hitting, say, sixth year, thinking of an area you want to get into, but that skills are so transferable. So I suppose, can you bring me up to Clough-Clavan and your now role as not a chef, but as the caretaker?
Right. So basically, how it happened was, I've been thinking about changing. I I do think the trade is possibly a younger person's job, and when I hit to that special age, the big 50, I was saying to myself, I did say it at home for a while. I think I nearly have enough of this, because I was getting tired, and I wasn't really happy in it, and the business changed. All the changes in the law really didn't, is not an advantage in the bar trade. So the smoking ban really murdered it, by the way. I'm not a smoker, but it really murdered the trade, because it split the customers, So, but I've been thinking about changing for a while, and a friend of mine, I'm not sure whether I should be saying this, a friend of mine said to me, well, he said, I think there might be a job coming up as a caretaker. Would you be interested in that? And I remember Finian, uh, up the road, when I was in school up the road. Finian was the caretaker, and I always liked the way he operated. Cross old devil, but he was, I liked the way he operated. So I said, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. So he said, let me check and see what the story is. So he went off and he was talking to one of his wife, who's a teacher here. And he said, yeah, Jerry's leaving, Jerry's leaving. He said, put in your name. He said, Freddie, put in your name. So that's what I did. I wrote Margaret a little email and I explained who I was and what what I was doing and stuff like that, what I was thinking of changing and stuff like that. And that evening then she rang me, come down and have a chat. That's basic. So, but it was COVID. I was here as a COVID worker first, and then it went on from there. But I had to do interviews and stuff like that, which I hate. But that's how it started, and haven't really looked back since, and I enjoy it.
So can you tell me what is your role within the caretaker? What does that look like? I know it's very broad. I see you all the time running around, but can you tell us like what does kind of like it involve?
Right. So basically, the rule is basically open the school at 7:45, close the school at 5 o'clock. That's basically what it means, right? But within that, you need to know a little bit about plumbing, carpentry, electrical work. But the biggest thing I think is organization. If you're running around like a headless chicken all the time, you get absolutely nothing done. So you have to prioritize. So my phone is my biggest ally because I write everything on my phone, on my calendar. So say today I have to put out the bins. That's on my phone. My phone reminds me. So you have to be organized. And I learned that in all the jobs I was in. Because if you're not organized, nothing works. Do you know what I mean? So you can be a headless chicken if you want. But when I'm running around for a reason. I don't run around like a headless chicken. I don't sit in my arse either. I don't sit around either. I like to walk around. I like to keep an eye on what's going on. So if you're in your office and you need something, well, you can walk out the door and ask me. You don't have to go looking for me in my office because you won't find me there unless I'm having a mug of coffee.
Which you're very much deserving of, Freddie. What has surprised you the most about being a caretaker?
Um, the I could slow down. I didn't have to be like a headless chicken all the time. I'm under less pressure now, and that's the biggest thing. I'm under less pressure now than I've ever been since I left school. Because in hotel, in food and beverage industry, you're nearly always under pressure. That's not good psychologically after 30 years. You start to suffer. When you go into a pub and there's an old lad behind the counter and you say, this is a grand old spot, but I wouldn't be a lover of him. I didn't want to be like that. So that's why I left it. But I was surprised here, for example, when I started as the caretaker, it was so much more relaxed. I really like children. I really like having a bit of crack with the children. I like the adults. I'm not a lover of the drinking part of it anymore. So, and I know teachers don't drink, but my point is the alcohol part of it doesn't really do anything for me anymore. So I prefer having a bit of crack, and I prefer sober people and a bit of just to have a good rapport with them. Everything else is secondary. I take my job serious. I don't take life serious.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting because sometimes, well, all the time people see you go around the place and like sometimes the students might not be aware that you are so organized with as you said, your phone, the bins go out, the school wouldn't, and I do that when we look at the supports in the school, when you mention who's the supports in the school, sometimes they go straight away to, the principal or, myself or the different teachers, but they don't realize that, when we look at it, the canteen staff, the cleaners, yourself, the school wouldn't function without those people. So even if one of those people were missing, the school wouldn't function. If you weren't here, the bins wouldn't go out.
Yeah.
The heating mightn't be turned on, etc. If the cleaners weren't here, we wouldn't have a clean school. If the
Yeah.
canteen staff weren't here, we wouldn't be fed. So everyone has such an important role to play within that. And
Correct.
organization is
Yes.
key. And I know from what you were telling me there, you know, from your time in France to the cruise ships, all those skills that you have, you know, learned and developed within those years, are so important as a caretaker, but they probably come so naturally now to you because you've worked kind of with them for so long. So just before we finish, Freddie, what advice would you give to students who might be interested in the tourism industry or the hotel catering industry?
I know less about the tourism industry other than dealing with people as tourists. The food and beverage industry is a tough industry. It can be psychologically tough, but it's in. Now, you're never going to be a millionaire in it, but you're going to be always warm. You're going to be always tidy. You're always going to have a job. If the economy crashes in the morning, you're still going to have a job. It's one of those jobs like an undertaker. You're always going to have a job. It's a changed business. The business has changed to a more formal setting, but it's a nice setting, you know, for a certain length of time. You know, like if you get 30 years out of it, you're doing well. You know, uh, I encourage people to do it because it's great training. I've worked 5 people, and now they're bank managers. So it's an industry that will give you experience for everything. You know, gives you experience if you want to be a nurse, want to be a doctor, a vet. Shows you absolutely everything. It's one of those jobs that gives you an all-round experience for loads of stuff. And I think anybody that gets a chance to work in it, that's what they should do. Go and work in it.
Yeah. Well, Freddie, thanks a million. That was
No
really
problem at all. I
insightful,
hope that
and I'm
sounds all right.
delighted.
So
Yes, and I'm sure the students are going to be absolutely delighted to see on screen. So, I really appreciate you talking to me today. Thanks, Freddie.
no problem at all. You're very welcome.
Bye
See you,
bye.
lads.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.